Welcome to Manu Forti Ministries presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I am your host, Reggie Key, and today I got my man, James Epps. I'm going to say his name first, put some respect on his name. He and I just met recently, and he has a wonderful podcast, a wonderful message that he talks about the greatness in you does not need approval, and I want to give him a chance to just introduce himself so we can get right into the conversation. James, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey man, I'm happy to be here, man. My name is James Epps Jr. I'm from a small town, Lake City, South Carolina. Um, I spent 22 years in the United States Marine Corps, retired from the Marine Corps, and then basically became a motivational speaker. I was looking for something to serve my purpose, and I wanted to speak to young people. So that's where we at, man. So I'm enjoying life right now, doing what I'm doing. And thank you for having me on the show because it was great to have you on my show. So now I'm glad that we get the opportunity to flip this thing and do it the other way around.
I definitely want to reciprocate it, man. To be honest, I have retired this series. I feel like it ran its course. I feel like it did what it was supposed to do. But after we had our interview, after I came to your podcast as a guest, the Lord was like, get this man his flowers. Like, let him get a chance to have some highlight in the spotlight be on him. And I was like, absolutely, because you do such a good job bringing spotlights to other people and their platforms and their messaging. That's a really selfless thing for you to do. And so I wanted to return that favor. And so we both out here in these motivational streets. We'll be in Chicago in May together at the Black Student Athlete Conference and Summit. And so, our paths are starting to cross, man. And it's like, why we got to keep being unintentional about it? Let's be intentional with how we're moving together. And so, as you're on the show, the thing that I start off everybody is by asking you a very simple question. James, do you consider yourself to be a genius?
A genius?
Yeah.
I don't know. When I think of genius, I think of like somebody who like really smart, like education wise. So and I struggle so through with my education. I'm a good person. I tell my sister all the time, I got more common sense. I got so much common sense. I could give you some sense and still have change left over. But I don't as far as like thinking I'm a genius, nah, I wouldn't say that I'm a genius or anything like that.
Well, I'm glad I have you here, brother, because I hope to deconstruct this word in our time together, and then when I reconstruct it and put it back together, you'll see yourself on the inside of it. So at the end of our time, I'm going to ask you this question again, and we'll see if it's changed or not. All right.
Yeah,
So
I appreciate
you
that.
you began to absolutely you began to say like some words, some affiliations that you associate to genius. But when I ask this question to classrooms and students and professionals, whether it's one on one or in a crowd, there's an answer, there's a name that everybody says when they think of genius, they associate it to this man, and he is the problem as to why more people don't see the genius in themselves. Who do you think that name is? What's the number one?
What is it Einstein?
It's
Is
Albert
it
Einstein.
yeah, Albert
All day,
Einstein.
all
Yeah.
day. And look, I don't mean to take anything away from Einstein. He was, in fact, a genius. There are things that are still being discovered in space that are still proving his theories that he postulated back in the early 1900s. So, salute to him. No disrespect. And by the way, as I'm saying salute, thank you for your service. 22
I
years.
appreciate
That's
it.
that's major. No pun
Appreciate
intended.
that.
I don't know what your rank was, but no pun intended.
Uh,
Uh, what was your rank, by the way?
Master Gunnery Sergeant.
Okay. I don't even know what that means. It sounds
Yeah,
boring.
yeah. Oh, so the difference we have officer, and then we have enlisted. And I was actually enlisted. So and Master Gunnery Sergeant along with Sergeant Major is the highest enlisted rank that you can obtain. So
Okay.
I did pretty good.
All right.
And while we're on here, I apologize to the people. Me and my wife, we've been switching laptops here lately, and it has Kimberly Epps
I'm
down
not
here.
gonna say
This,
nothing.
yeah. Hey, I'll say this like this though. When you get married, you are one. So when you see
Hey,
Kimberly, you see me, and when you see me, you see Kimberly. So
nice way to
just to
say
help
that.
you to understand, so that's what's going on down there. But hey, shout
Yeah,
out to
yeah.
my wife. Love you, baby.
That's what's up. But yeah, getting back to this guy, Einstein. He understood a thing about genius that I think many of us have missed. There's a quote that purportedly comes from him, and I want to get to that in a minute. But I want to make sure to just to just talk about this association that we do with Einstein and the detriment that it has to us. Because when we associate genius to an Einstein, but we're like, I don't know what E equals MC squared is. I don't even care about the theory of relativity. Then we end up disassociating genius from ourselves. We're like, well, shoot, if I don't understand Einstein and I don't look nothing like this cat, because nobody ever on Earth ever looks like this dude, right? We'll just begin to say, well, people like him are genius and I'm not. And there's a danger in that because the major theme that encompasses this whole idea of genius is accepting labels. The first label that you ever get is your name. And I'm trying to get people to understand that just as important as your name is important to understand the genius that you possess. Because if you don't know what that genius is, if you don't understand that label belongs to you in a very unique and specific way, when the world sees you and sizes you up, and you know, as Black men, the world does that to us, it will say, this is who you are. It'll assess you and put a label on you that does not fit your genius. And if you don't know who you are, James, when the world comes by and looks at us and says, hey, you ain't nothing but a thug, you can't be anything more than an athlete, an entertainer, you know what I mean? Like, and that's all they show on the media. So this is why this is so important for young people, because if the media keeps showing these same four tropes and making our people, our children feel like I got to fit into one of these buckets, when you go into a genius, when you go into a label that does not define who you really are, to me, that's a form of death. When you begin to try to walk out some other person's purpose that's not embracing who you are, that's a form of death. And I see dying genius all around me. And so one of my goals, one of my passions is that I want to revitalize, resuscitate, and resurrect the dying genius that I see around me. And so with that, I'm gonna pause for a second. You got any response? You got any comments on that so far?
Yeah, I mean, when I talk to people and I just want your audience to know for the people who will see this video, like everything that he's saying, like when you talk about like nobody can be like a better you than you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so with you being, you have your own gifts and your own talents that you've been blessed with. And see, the thing a lot of people don't understand is like that thing that comes easy to you, that thing that comes natural to you, that's your gift. That's your gift. And the Bible says, like, your gift will always make room for you. But a
Yes.
lot of people are so afraid to unlock that gift because they're worried about what other people are going to say. So there, I know I'm the best baker. I'm just talking about just stuff simple. Like I know I'm
Mm-hmm.
the best baker. I want to this just always I just know I don't even need to like measure or anything like that. It just came natural to you. But you're afraid to go open your business. You're afraid to really invest in yourself. You're afraid to really take the time. And then as soon as you tell somebody, like I'm thinking about doing this, and the first person that gives you any
Right.
kind of like a backlash, you give up on that dream. And so when you talk about like the genius, I relate it to what I talk about. Like the greatness does not need approval.
Yes.
Because people don't really believe that they're great, and I understand, and I empathize with that because I didn't always believe that would be great. That's why when I go around and I tell people like, "Hey man, you could be great. You can do whatever it is that you want to do." Right? It's crazy because I remember where I was, and I remember not believing in myself, not believing in my gifts. I say all the time, when I used to talk to my son, I said, "All right, bro, like he's struggling right now in school, right? If he's struggling." And I would tell him, I was like, all right, so there's a person in your class. Some kids don't even have to study,
Yeah.
they're smart. Like they're smart and they get it, And then some kids are smart and they get it and they study. And I said, sorry, for you, maybe you wasn't blessed that way, right? You wasn't blessed in the ability to be able to just get stuff right away. So that means you're going to have to study a little harder. But there are gifts that you have that they don't have,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so you have to like hone into those gifts as well. Like make sure you understand like whatever it is that you're gift. I can see like a gift in each one of my kids. I can see like, all right, this is how this one is going to eat. This is how this one's going to eat. So that's why I don't even like hold them to traditional like, I you just need to go to college
Right.
because
Right.
college is not for everybody. And I look, I promote college. I promote college. I want you to
Mm-hmm.
understand I promote college. But college wasn't for me. If I would have went to college straight out of high school, I would have failed out the first semester because I'm like, I didn't like high school and I struggled then. But
Right.
it took time for my mind to be prepared for that. So when you talk about genius, it's just really just unlocking that thing that you are special at. And so when you unlock that one thing and then you just like don't wait for somebody else to tell you that you're great at it, just go ahead and do it. Like you're great. So just go ahead and do it. And now I'm starting to learn like you're a genius as well.
Yeah, you already started to learn. I appreciate that. See, the thing that's important that I want to put out there, we're talking about non-academic genius. We're not talking about high GPA, high IQ. Yeah, there is genius like that. Einstein was a very specific academic genius. But here's the funny thing about Einstein. He actually in school was not a good student. He wasn't a good traditional student. And so he got his parents got a letter home that was like, hey, you might want to make sure this one works with his hands because he's not fit for academics. And so again, had he believed what the people were saying and assessing about him, we would have been robbed of one of the greatest minds of physics that the world has ever known. But he saw something in himself, and I don't know what his parents did to gird him up and to guard him from all of that. But he didn't allow the teachers' labels to limit him, even when he got to college, because he'd be in the classroom daydreaming, looking out the window, and the teachers would be like, "Hello," like the teachers kicked him out, like you're disrespecting my classroom, you're not focused. But you know what he was doing? He was in his own bag. He was imagining what it would look like and feel like to ride a sunbeam from the sun to the earth. And in doing that, that thought, he called it thought experiments, and developing those thought experiments that traditional classrooms don't encourage, he was able to develop the theory of relativity. And so
I will
under
say this, not to interrupt, like just speaking of what you're speaking about, right? Like sometimes I feel like maybe the classroom kind of box you in,
oh, I'm gonna
right?
talk all about
Because yeah, because I agree that like everybody don't don't learn that way.
no.
And what I mean, like when boxes you in, I'll just use something simple. Like I'm a referee, and when I first started refereeing, we would go to these classes and they would be talking about stuff. I referee multiple sports. They would just be talking about these things, and I would just be like, man, I ain't gonna get this. This is so like it's weird. Like it's speaking French to me. But as soon as we get on the field, it's like, oh, okay, this is
Bruh,
easy. Like as soon as we like, oh, all right, I got this, right? Okay, like it all makes sense to me. Like so it's like it's natural once I get to that part of it.
do you
And
know why that is?
do I know why that is?
Yes, I know why that is. And I'm gonna tell you if you don't already know.
Okay, I want you to tell me, and then I can kind of elaborate on it more, I guess.
What's your son's name?
What's my son's name?
Yeah, the one that you just talked about.
Oh, I got two. I got two. James and Joshua.
James and Joshua. Which one was the one that you just spoke about that, hey, you might.
Look, unfortunately, I have to have that conversation with both of them.
Okay. So look, this is going to minister to James. Is he the third?
Yeah, he's the
Is
third.
you junior and Joshua, right?
Yeah.
And this is going to minister to you too. I'm jumping ahead now. I'm glad you brought this up. Look, when I go into classrooms, like so, for example, a friend of mine is the principal. She called me into a school one time. She said, "Can you talk?" She's an elementary school principal. She was like, "I need somebody to connect with some of my young men, some of these young boys who are minorities." And at the time, I was developing this idea, Jen. So like, I was like, "Let me get in there. I would gladly do it." And I would go chop it up with them every Friday, weekly, right? And when I got there, what she didn't tell me was, or at least I don't remember her saying this, is that each of those little boys was on an IEP, an individual education plan, or what we would have called special ed back in the day. And so when I came in, they tried to dismantle my message real quick. I was like, "How many of y'all understand that you are a genius?" It was like, "Man, whatever. Like that's not me. You in the wrong class, cuz." And I was like, "Okay." And so what I realized, these 9 little boys in third, fourth, and fifth grade had all been put in one class all day because pretty much the school didn't know what to do with them. And here's why the school didn't know what to do with them and was marginalizing them and making them feel less than. Schools, did you know, James, that there are 8 different learning styles?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've heard that, and then we've talked about it. Like that's something that we've went over in the military during that time that about the learning style. So
Yeah. But the thing about it is schools do not embrace all 8. At most, schools embrace 3. And those 3 are the verbal learner who learns as we're talking, right? Who it clicks for them once they hear it. There's the left brain thinker. That's where the math resides. So some people that like math, most people don't. That means they're just not a left brain thinker. Doesn't mean that they're slow. And then there's what is it? There's verbal, and there's visual. The visual learner. You put it on the board, they're like, I get it. But if you don't speak one of those three learning styles, and all the information is being given to you from that perspective, you already said it. You're like, it's like you're talking another language. I don't understand what you're saying. And literally, the information that you're supposed to be learning is being lost in translation because your learning style, your learning language is different. And so, you know what the three primary learning styles are that I've noticed are for minority students? They are called the kinesthetic learner. That's the person who has to learn by moving. And that's why I want to come back to, because our student athletes are being labeled as dumb jocks, because when they're out on the field and out on the courts where they can move freely and process information, they can get it in seconds. They can run plays, they can do all that. But then when they're limited in their movement by sitting in a classroom all day, and when they try to get up and the teacher's like, sit down, be still, what's happening is their learning style is getting suppressed.
Mm.
And so because their learning style is getting suppressed and it's not being embraced and identified, now they're just in class like, I hate this place, man. This place doesn't make any sense to me. I must be dumb. Or the other learning style that I see is in our students is the expeditionary. There's three labels for it: expeditionary, exploratory, or tactile. Simply meaning you got to put your hands on stuff. These are the people who can. You don't got to teach them, but they can take apart a thing and put it back together like flawlessly, and they learn by hands-on experience. But when you go to put your hands on something in the class, what happens? The teacher is like, hey, don't touch that, don't touch him, don't touch her, keep your hands to yourself. And their learning style is being suppressed. The
Mm.
last learning style that I actually saw a man embrace fully as he was engaging our young kids in kindergarten and getting them to learn their number placements in the trillions is the right brain thinker. That's the rhythmic learner. That's the person who learns by music and learns outside of the box and learns, like I said, rhythmically. But if you're not allowed to really embrace that in school, again, you're going to feel like something is wrong with me. I hate this place. I don't belong. And so, just like understanding your genius, understanding your learning style, once you embrace it, you can begin to advocate for yourself and then bring the proper resources and the proper approach around you so that you can embrace, this is a part of your talent skill set, which we'll get into later. But once you know what it is and you're confident that this is who you are, then you begin to affect the environment instead of the environment affecting and afflicting you.
Yeah, and that's why I believe that like teachers who think outside the box, that's why they have more success like in their classroom because they're not just going with just the traditional methods and they understand like okay, like little Johnny may learn this way and I notice like when we do a certain like when we do activities, oh little Susan she gets it when we do this way. And so when that's what I think made the best teachers is that and I understand that from doing this and the different personality types. So I always, even in my speeches, I make sure like even though I'm a whole bunch of energy, and I'm about feelings and emotions, I always make sure I try to put some type of like stats or something up there so I can connect with those other type of learners. So I like everything that you say, man, I'm eating it up and I'm feeding into it. So I appreciate it. I appreciate it learning my own particular genius, getting better.
Yes, sir. That's what I'm gonna bring to the Black Student Athlete Summit in Chicago. Like this kinesthetic learning style, it's a game changer once you know that that's where you're operating from. But I wanna pull back and get back to Einstein. I jumped ahead because I was going to talk about that later. But when you mentioned that, I didn't want to miss this opportunity to really minister to your kids, your sons, to let them know, hey, this might be your learning style. There are tests you can take, really quick tests to figure out what it is, and then begin to talk to your teachers and say, hey, this is my learning style. I had a young man who was a mentee of mine many years ago. He's a good basketball player, but he was struggling in school. And he came to his teacher. He said, you mind if I just move around while you're teaching? And she was like, as long as you don't interrupt anybody else, I'm fine with it. And his grades got better. I mean, it was that simple. He just needed to move. But anyways, that was a digression, but it was a good digression. I want to come back to Einstein for one final point. All right. This is a quote that has been associated to Einstein, though, the interwebs will tell me that it doesn't belong to him, but it doesn't matter. The quote is great. I want to know if you've heard this quote before and what it means to you when you hear it. So you ready? Here's a quote. It says, if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it will spend its entire life believing it's stupid.
Now, I never heard that quote. I can honestly say I never heard that quote.
Yeah. So you need me to say it again?
All right. Yeah, I'll take it.
All right. If you judge a fish by how well it climbs a tree, it will spend its entire life believing it's stupid.
That makes sense. All right. Because yeah, like when they say you take a fish out of water, which is like the fish's comfort zone, all right, and you put it and you tell it to climb a tree, well, that doesn't make any sense because like a fish, we all know fish don't climb trees.
Where
Like
do they belong?
they belong in the water.
Right. And so this is very much about finding your element.
Mhm.
Fish were designed by God to function at a high level in water. They have fins, scales, and gills that help. I dare you keep up with a fish in the water. You won't be able to, or that bear that can climb the tree, right? I have a visual where there's a bear that looks like Einstein. He's climbing the tree, right? He's climbing it effortlessly too. And there's a little fish at the root of the tree, like grabbing onto it for dear life. Like, this doesn't feel right, but somewhere along the line, it's been conditioned to think you're supposed to climb this tree. And to your
Yeah.
point, if that's not just its comfort zone, James, that's where it thrives. And if you take it out of its element, it dies. If a fish stays out of water for too long, you're about to have a fish dinner, right? Because it's going to die. It's not going to thrive. And remember, I told you I see dying genius all around me. And so, in my mind, if you just pick this fish up and put it in its element, you're going to reinforce where it thrives and how it thrives. And so, as we move forward, I'm going to break down genius into three elements. It's your passion, your talent, and your purpose, right? And your passion is what helps define your element. Your passion helps you figure out what's my water, what's the water to my fish. All right. And once you begin to understand that, you can begin to, some people are already operating in their genius, they just don't know it. And it takes somebody on the outside to just say, hey, what you're doing though is genius for them to be able to execute it at a higher level and with greater authority and with greater understanding of who they are. And so, having said that, I want to move to this first element, and it's your passion. Now, James, what words come to mind when you hear the word passion?
When I hear the word passion, the words that will come to mind is just something that like you truly like believe in, like
Mm-hmm.
something that you're willing to invest time into, something that like it doesn't take work, right? Like you just feel like I'm passionate about it, like it's something that I can get behind, it's something that I'll support. Like so when you see people when they're like when they get upset about something, it's because
Mm-hmm.
they just believe in it that much. You know, sometimes some of y'all are a little too passionate about certain subjects. We ain't gonna talk about them subjects. Some of y'all are a little too passionate about it, you get too connected with it. But when I think of passion, that's what I think of. And when I think of passion, like I was passionate about the military for as long as I was because I loved my Marines, I loved the people, I loved what we did, what we stood for. And so that was one thing like when I'm thinking about passion now, that's what was the first thing like I truly struggled with, like leaving the military is I couldn't find anything else that I was passionate about because I
Mm,
was one to like I didn't want to just get a job because I'm like what's that, right? It's a
right.
job and I just go and punch the clock. I didn't want to do that. And so that's why I was excited when I found speaking is because I'm passionate about it. Like I look forward to it and I get that same feeling of service that I got before. So when you talk about passion, that is what comes to mind is the fact that like I'm passionate now about speaking, so like it doesn't feel like work. When you're passionate about something, it's not work. It's like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like
Yes.
so I've unlocked that part of my life right now.
You said a lot about what passion is, and I'm glad that you did not say anything about love. Look, you said that some people get like really upset like about what they're passionate about, and I actually want to come back to that because most people associate passion to do what you love. But I read a book by Mike Murdoch one time called The Assignment, and it's a Christian book. He's a minister. He said, you know what? If you want to figure out what you're passionate about, figure out what you hate. Figure out what he called it your Popeye moment. Like the thing that's happening in the world that when it impacts you, it affects you in a negative way. It afflicts you, and you're like, ooh, you know, when Popeye, when Bluto started messing with him too much, he was like, I've had all I can stand. I can't stand no more. And he'll bust that spinach out, and then it was a wrap. Whatever obstacle, whomever was in his way would no longer be in his way. And so he was like, find your Popeye moment. And what he went on to define even further is the thing that you hate in this world, not people. We're not talking about people. We're talking about the thing that you hate in this world is the thing that God also hates. And I know that sounds strong, but we know he hates sin. And so that sinfulness has broken the world. Would you agree that the world is broken right now in this current time?
Oh, yeah, yes, definitely. Definitely.
So there's enough brokenness to go around where it afflicts each of us in a different way. Think of a room. You remember Die Hard when my man, what was Bruce Willis's character's name? I forgot his name, but he had to walk through that room of broken glass, and he had no shoes on. Like
I can't
anybody
remember
that
his
would have,
name.
yeah, but you know that scene. Anybody that would have entered into that room at that time would have gotten their foot cut in some way, shape, or form. And that's what the brokenness in the world is so ubiquitous that it hits each and every one of us and affects us in a different way. It traumatizes us. And when we experience that trauma, God is like, now you're experiencing the broken heart that I have for this brokenness that's in the world. And what I believe is this passion, like you hear people say, I hate that with a passion, right? Go after it because God has given each of us a piece of his heart. He's like, you know what? I want you to know what it feels like to be called a man after my own heart because what you're going to do is you're going to see something that's broken in the world and how it gets your attention is it hurts you. It hurts the people that you love. And you're like, ooh, I don't like how that feels. And I'm going to do something about it. And you're driven now. You're motivated. It doesn't matter how big, I bring in David. David he was a man after God's own heart. So when he saw this giant talking poorly about his God and suppressing God's people, he was like, oh, I'm going after him. I don't care how big the obstacle is. I don't care how much the odds are against me. I'm going after it. And David took this giant's head off because he understood, look, I know something that I have within my possession. I have this slingshot, these five smooth stones in my staff. I can do something with this. I'm going to take what I know and I'm going to use it against this thing to make sure that it doesn't afflict, hurt, suppress, marginalize anybody else ever again. And so the things that we hate, James, they're not small. Most times there's something big and there's systemic things that are bigger than us. I would have gotten to this point and talked about the school system being broken because it doesn't represent the 8 learning styles and how each of those little boys, you know what I told them? I was like, I can tell each and every one of you, you're future educators because of what you told me you hated. Because they all said universally, look, James, these boys that can never agree on anything. Whose turn it was to play with a given toy? Whose turn it was to go to the bathroom? Who hit who first? Whose chair it was? They all agreed universally that they hated school. And in that hate, I told them, you're a future educator. The system, the broken system has failed you. It's marginalizing you. It's hurting you. And you're like, man, somebody should do something about this. But because they don't see the genius in themselves, they keep pointing and looking at somebody else while they run away from the thing. Versus once you embrace your genius, like my learning style is my talent in this equation. And I'm going to take my passion of hating this school and go after this thing with my learning style. And I said, as a future educator, you take your learning style and make it become a teaching style. Now, guess what? You're representing what's missing and you're reaching those other students who were not reached like you were. And you reached them with passion. And this was proven to me recently, bro, when I went to this conference 2 weeks ago called Profound Gentlemen. I went to this class, I went to this one session. It was called I Hated School Until I Figured It Out. And the man that was facilitating was he had his doctorates, he had a book out, he was a principal of the school, and he basically explained what I just told you. But here's the thing that blessed my life, James. This was an all black male educators conference. When he asked, "Hey, how many of y'all hated school?" All pretty much everybody in the classroom raised their hand, and I was like, "This is what I've been speaking about." Each and every one of them took that passion, took that pain, and turned it into not on my watch. I'm gonna make sure that these other little black boys and girls that come through this system are gonna experience and encounter somebody who knows what it felt like to feel like you don't belong and can reach you and teach you in a way that nobody else can. and they're operating in their genius. So it did my heart a world of good to see that. And but I've been talking too much. I've been hearing my voice. Let me hear your reactions to that.
Oh, no, it's just when you say that, a lot of times, like I remember like early on in my career and when I started to become a leader, like getting in leadership positions, I would hear people would be like, yo, I'm getting out of the military because I don't like this and I don't like that. It'd be things they were frustrated with. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, and I used to tell them, I say, well, why don't you get promoted and you change it? Like, so if you don't like it, don't get out because you came in for a reason. It was things about it that you love and things about it that you still believe in, but you just don't like. So it's not really even the system, it's the people that you don't like. You don't like the people that are in charge. So the way you change it is like you become the person that is in charge. And now, yes, you're still gonna have to deal with some of those things, but now you can lead in the way that you feel is best to lead. And so,
Yeah.
because what I always, and I started doing myself is like, once I got promoted, then I was able to lead in my leadership style and to show other people like there's another way to lead,
Yes,
you
sir.
know. And I used to tell my Marines that I love them. Like that's not something that's very common
Yeah, yeah.
among like military people. Not to say that some people don't, but I'm saying when I tell you like I love you, and they're like, what? What do you mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh, hold on, all right, kill, Master Guns, kill.
yeah.
Like we kill, we don't love. Yeah, yeah, but no, no. I used to tell them that to let them know, like, even though yes, what we're doing, like, it's important, and what we're doing, we're chosen to protect this country. I don't want you to forget that we're humans. And
Yeah.
that's what basically I'm telling them when I tell them I love them. So when you talk about like people when when they don't like something like education or they didn't like the military, like I would encourage you if you're that person, like he's saying, like that's the thing that you're passionate about, instead of like, because there's gonna be somebody like you. And when I'm talking, like I'm literally feel like I'm talking to somebody who may be like me. Or like I say, like there are people who've had it worse than me. But at least I'm just trying to relate because in order to relate, you can't have relationship without relating, right?
Hmm.
So I'm trying to relate to that person to help them to understand like you ain't by yourself. Like there was a time that I didn't like education. And like you said, I would have raised my hand if I was in that room that shoot, I don't shoot. I hate school. I hate school. I agree with you. I hate school. But I hated school, but why? And that's the thing I've learned. Like if you don't like something or something happened in your life, first ask yourself the question why.
Yep.
And then once you ask yourself the question, because I just didn't like school. Okay, why? All
Hmm.
right. Because I struggled in school. Like I didn't like how the teacher used to teach me. And why didn't you like how the teacher used to teach you? Because I didn't understand what she was teaching me or he was teaching me. And why did that bother you? Because like I want to be able to go to college. You see where I'm going? Like when you start really peeling the onion back and you go
Yeah, yeah.
deeper and deeper, you get to really what is the root of the problem of why you really don't like it. So it's not that you really did, it's not that you don't want to get smarter. It's not that you don't want to get better.
Right.
It's the fact that you're just not connecting with how the method of which is
It's just
being
taking time.
used. And so
Yeah.
that's what was frustrating you throughout the process. So when I'm hearing what you're saying, like that's what I'm getting like from it when we talk about like the passion and what you were talking about earlier. So
Bro, like I heard you say it early on. You were like, man, nobody told me I was great or let me even believe I could be great. So now I tell everybody they're great.
well,
That
let me say this. Let me say this. I didn't believe that I could be great, even though my mother and father, so we didn't have a lot of money. I didn't even really tell like kind of like my story, but I grew up in a trailer park. We didn't have a lot of money or anything like that. I had some things happen to me young in my life, like I was molested by older cousin when I was young. I was overweight. I had gap teeth. I had low self-esteem. So my classmates weren't nice to me, all this stuff. So I was dealing with all those things. And at the height of everything, I struggled in high school. I was well, in high school and in middle school. I failed the sixth, seventh, eighth grade, right? But when things got at its worst, I thought about committing suicide. But like I tell people, two very important things happened. The first one was I changed my mindset, and the second one was, I decided to live. And when I decided to live, that's when things started to change. And so, in doing so, I really started on that path to discovering my genius, I guess you would say.
Yes.
I really started like getting more confidence that I had the opportunity to be great at something. So now when my parents was telling me that I could be great, I was listening now. When before I was worried about everybody else's approval. So I
Hmm.
really wasn't locked in, or I really wasn't like listening to what they were saying. So now I can hear them, but now I don't know what I can be great at. I don't know what I can be great at, but I know
Right.
I can be.
Right.
But I know I can be. I haven't found what it is, but now at least I'm starting to listen, and now I had a couple coaches told me, "Hey, you're good at this. You're good at this." And then I think what really like gave me a spark of like kind of who I was I wrestled in high school for 2 years.
Okay.
The second year I wrestled, they named me as a captain. And the guys that were with me, they would be looking at me like, and this was the first time I was the captain of anything. So,
Hmm.
and they would be looking to me for like answers and motivation and all that stuff. And I was able to help. I was able to help. And that's when I really started to discover like, oh, okay, like I might be a leader, like like people are drawn to me like in a way that I didn't know that people would be drawn to me. And so it started to unlock that portion of me. And so, because I wasn't like, I didn't play sports like all 4 years of my high school career. So I wasn't like that. I only started really playing my 11th and 12th grade year. And so with that, um, I wasn't exposed to I was, like I said, I was so worried about like people and what people thought. And I was coming out of that shell my ninth and 10th grade year of stop worrying about what other people think about you.
Right.
And so each time somebody would tell me something that I was pretty good at, or even something simple, I was, I entered, I went to a brick mason competition.
What?
A brick mason competition. I was in like a technical class. I went to this brick mason competition. I didn't win, but it was the fact that he chose me to go.
Sure.
Like that was like a win for me. It's like you chose me to go because I didn't never really like won anything. So when I started to see myself do good at things, it was like it kept building on that. Maybe I'm not great at like writing a paper. Maybe I'm not great at some of this educational stuff, but there are other lanes that I could be great at, and that's
Yeah.
when it started unlocking like that genius that you would say and
That
to help me
self-permission,
be.
like I can do good things. I can do
Yeah.
great things.
Yeah.
Right.
It started validating that I had some worth in this world.
Yeah. Here's the thing that's so dope about that. As you gain confidence, and you still like, I don't know what it is I'm put on this planet to do, but you were gaining confidence that once you took that step in that direction, you said that people were drawn to you, and you said that he chose you. I know you were talking about either the coach or the teacher that chose you to go to this brick mason contest, but the Lord has chosen you as well. And it makes me think of Moses. For whatever particular reason, Moses was born in the right time. He was born in the right region, and God was like, "You're going to be my deliverer. You're going to be the one who delivers my people from Egypt." But you know what he had to experience first before he was like, "Hey, I gotta call these people out." He had to experience Egypt in a way that was different from his own upbringing, because he was brought up in the luxury of Egypt. But one day he sees his fellow Hebrews being hurt, being abused as slaves in Egypt, and that struck something got lit on fire on the inside of him. And the Lord eventually used that to be like, now I need you, despite Moses saying, like, I'm not eloquent of speech, I don't talk well. God was like, first of all, who made your mouth? Don't worry about how you talk and how people receive you. But he was like, also, this gets into the talent section, because as Moses kept giving excuses as to why he couldn't do a thing that God had called him to do, that purposed him to do, he was like, what's in your hand, bro? I mean, I'm making it modern. It doesn't say bro in the Bible. But he asked Moses what was in his hand. He was like, just this like raggedy staff. He was like, you have all that you need. because we know what happened. He said, put that staff on the ground. He put it on the ground, it turned into a snake. He jumped out of his skin. When he came back to himself, God was like, pick it up by his tail. He picked it back up, and it was a staff again. And he let him know, you already have everything that you need to do what I've called you to do. And that gets into the talent piece. And so knowing that we have to go into a place of captivity by the trauma that we experience, but when we come out, we'll be the leader that God needs us to now bring other people out. It's not just for us to escape the trauma, but it's to turn around and say, hey, you know what? I see your trauma. I identify with your trauma as a wounded healer. I empathize with your trauma. I'm going to bring you out of this. And so, man, I don't know if I know that you have a couple different themes that you do. I know your main one is greatness does not need approval, but I don't know if you're already doing this, James, but you have a unique opportunity and ability to minister to others who have been molested, to minister to others who have been traumatized the way you've been traumatized, in a way that I can't, because I didn't experience the same trauma that you experienced. Yes, I experienced rejection for several different reasons, but what you experienced, I am confident that when Jesus talks about, you know what, how can you see clear to remove the speck in your brother's eye if you do not first remove the beam from your own? You know what happens, James, when you remove the beam from your own eye? He says you will be able to see clear the speck in your brother's eye and remove it from them. And you won't remove it aggressively. You won't remove it without it says, when you see someone in sin, restore them in gentleness. You have the capacity to do that because you know what it's like to have that speck in your eye.
Yeah,
Or
and
it was a beam.
I would say to the person that's listening, when like everything that I've went through, I just realized like I didn't go through that brokenness or that time of feeling alone, feeling scared, not knowing why this is happening. We didn't go through that for nothing
Nope.
because I've used all of those situations to like minister and to help other people in the situations that they're currently or they were like going through. And so even though like the stuff seems hard and like we have and you like why did this happen? You have to understand, like, in order for
Indeed.
you to go to where God really wants you to go, sometimes we have to go through this and we have to
Yes.
go through things like that. And if I and it sounds crazy, like most people would say like you would change you would change things in your life.
Yep.
But I can't say that. I can't say like I really would change like anything, even though like I feel like I've had some real bad things happen to me in life. I wouldn't say I would change anything because if I change something, then would I be where I am now?
No.
Would it have given me the information that I needed to help the person who walked in my office who was dealing with a similar situation? Because I had, like you said, the firsthand knowledge of
You see it on
experiencing
like,
it. Yeah, so that's what all the things that I have gone through has allowed me to have and truly and that and if you ask me like what is your genius? Like from understanding what you have been talking about, what is my genius? I say my genius is my connection with people. Like I understand that is what has made me great. Is like I'll tell people in a minute. Like I was good at being a Marine. I was good at my job, but I was great.
hmm,
Like you can tell like I am a genius when it comes to dealing with people. Like I know how to talk to people. I can feel what they're going through. You can literally drop me anywhere with people and it does not matter the language. I don't even have to speak the language. And I could find something to relate to people. Because I just genuinely have a heart for people because
yeah.
I really do want them to be great. And I'm sure you're the same way. Like you really do want them to unlock that thing that God put within you to be like your purpose and your genius and your greatness. Like I really, really want people to discover that because once you do, it's like, man, I can't believe that I thought I was just average. I can't believe
Yeah.
that I thought I was worthless. I can't believe that I didn't think that I was good enough. So
You know what it
what?
does?
Yes.
It transitions a person from being a victim to a victor of circumstance. Like, and some people don't like it when I say hate what you hate. So I can change it now. This is the first time I've even said this out loud. doing this type of session. What's your why? Because and not your why you're doing it, but what's your why? Like, why did I go through that? I didn't deserve that. It's like, bro, it wasn't even about you. It was about it's about you being healed or getting healed. And as you're getting healed, helping other people to walk in that healing too. So moving from victim to victor of circumstance and finding that place where why did I go through that? Indeed, why did you go through for someone else to be able to be delivered and set free?
Yeah, because if you don't really sometimes can understand, like that goes back to if you can't really relate in anything like with somebody, sometimes you're going to be able to reach people that I could never reach, Reggie.
Exactly.
But because of my experiences, I'm going to be able to reach people that you haven't, you weren't able to reach. And then there's people out there I see, and I'm like, man, like this dude's different or she's different, and they can reach people that you could never reach.
Yes.
And that's because of their experiences. That's because of what they go through. Because people, like, that's why it's quick to put representation, right? When people see representation, like, I didn't think, like, when I tell my story, like, I think some people look at it like, man, I can't believe, like, he went through all that. And he's still, like, you would never know. And I remember the first time, like, I shared it with my Marines. It was like I was given a class and people were like not taking it serious. I was giving a class on like prevention of sexual assault, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in this particular class, it just felt like, and most times people were listening, but this particular class, it just felt like they wasn't listening. And I was calling out stats. At the time, it was like one in every six females had been sexually assaulted in the military, and then it was like one in 33 males, right? I still can
Mm-hmm.
remember those stats. I done did that class so much,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And it was more than that amount of people in the class, but it's like they wasn't taking it serious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Oh, so it's not serious." And I told them, I said, "So it's more than 33 male in here. I'm the one."
Mm.
I had to let them know, like, I'm the one. And so you're sitting here and you're not taking this seriously, and you're not understanding, like, and I understood that there were other people around me like that. I understood that it was more than six females in there. I knew it was more than like that had likely happened, you
Sure.
know? And so when you've gone through something like that, that allows you to be able to connect with people just on a level, just to understand, like, look, to basically tell them, I see you.
Yeah.
And that's what I want people to know. Like, and I want people to get from this is like, I see you. And because I see you, I want you to know that I was there when I didn't believe that I was somebody special. I didn't believe that I was great. And I definitely did not believe that I was a genius. But I'm sitting here today and
You
I'm
said it
telling
several
you
times.
that you are a genius. You are all of those things. So I need you to believe that. I need you to feel that in your spirit. So I'm glad that we just have this opportunity to do this right here. So
I am too, bro. Like, look, um, this is a moment that's so critical and crucial, especially in this day and time, because so many people feel helpless and feel like they're just kind of they got to kind of go with the flow and have the stuff happens to them. But it's like stop letting stuff happen to you and start happening to the things that are in the world. And you do this by embracing the passion that's linked to your trauma, right? And then if you find brokenness in the world, or let's make it real simple, you find something broken in your house, the first thing you're going to look for as you begin to convince yourself that, hey, nobody else is fixing this, maybe I can fix it, you look for a tool. And T for tool, T for talent. That's what your talent is. The God given talent that you have, because your talent is not your own. And we're meant to give a return on investment to He who gave us our talent. Your talent is your tool to fix the thing that's broken in the world that has traumatized you and is traumatizing other people. David's talent was his five smooth stones in that slingshot. He was like, I know exactly what to do with this. I've been training with this. I've been honing this craft. I know exactly what to do with this to knock this giant's head off, right? Moses had his staff, like we talked about. And so understanding that your talent is already in your hand, what that looks like, James, is it's in your family. You mentioned it earlier. It's like maybe you're a good cook, but you're like, man, what that can't do anything. Yes, it can, right? What's in your family is God's way of identifying your lineage and being like, there's something that you all were called to do. Very specifically, you may have different passions, but here's how you're going to address your passion, right? And so understanding that that's actually the end of the equation, because your purpose in life is to figure out what your God-given talent is and use it as a tool to fix what's broken that drives your passion. In doing so, you unlock your genius. In doing so, you no longer need approval to be great. And now, as you look around and see the brokenness in the world and you understand the genius on the inside of you, you're not looking and waiting and pointing at someone else to go fix it. You're like, I'm equipped. I'm positioned in this time to do a thing that nobody else can do. And you mentioned something earlier. It makes me think of the body of Christ. Like you said, your skill set is different from mine, right? You're a subject matter expert at a particular thing that's different from me. And the word says that we are one body, many members. Those different members, those many members are the different functionalities that each of us has. That when we operate together, bro, as a church, as the body of Christ, there is nothing in the world that we can't overcome. Even as Christ has said, the Bible says that you are the head and not the tail, above only and not beneath. We'll begin to understand that and to arise to the occasion when we can see what the world calls genius being the mind of Christ within us. Because that's what it is. The Bible in 1 Corinthians 2:16 says that we have the mind of Christ. Of course, the body has the mind because every body has a head, right? On the inside of that head is a brain, is a mind. And that brain and mind communicates with every part of the body to make sure that it can function together. And each part of the body that has this unique communication pathway to the brain, it owns that part. And so it can say, my pinky finger has a brain, right? Because there's a neurological pathway that connects it to my brain so that it communicates and helps me grab a hold of this laptop, right? And so that's, if people have a hard time embracing in the church specifically too, have a hard time embracing their genius, I just put it in the framework of you have access to the mind of Christ. And if you believe that you have access to the mind of Christ after being a part of his body, then you too have genius. And so, bro, I'm gonna land the plane because we could keep talking for hours and hours and hours on end, keep just kind of going back and forth. But I don't even need to ask the question that I asked to start this off because you've already said it several times. You've already identified that your greatness is tied to your genius. And I've heard you say it out your mouth several times. So I thank you for affirming it. I thank you for seeing it. And I thank you for your time on this program today.
Well,
James,
can I say this one thing before we leave?
please
All
do.
right, so to the people that are broken, to the people that are broken, to the people that feel disconnected. Right now, he was saying when we talked about David and we talked about Moses, yeah, their talents were great, but they had to be connected to something. They needed to connect to the source.
Hey,
And that's the most important thing that I want you to understand is like if you're not connected to the source, that's why you really can't like you don't really understand your talent. Like what is the purpose for this talent? It's because you need to be connected to the source. And
mm-hmm,
that source is God. That source is God. And so when we talk about the brokenness of people and because their is not in a place that they need to be. The thing that I feel like right now, and I'm sorry if I'm making this a little longer than it should be,
do what you gotta do.
um, but the thing I've said, like the reason why these kids are struggling right now is because they don't believe in anything.
Yep.
They don't have anything to be connected to. And so that's why they're struggling with like, what's my talent? What's my genius? I so if for your purpose to be fulfilled here, somebody had to give you a purpose. So who gave you that purpose? God gave you that purpose. And so that thing that you feel like you're looking for, it's God. It's God. And that's what gives you the guide to help you find that genius. And so when you're struggling and you're going through all the things that you may be going through in your life, I just want you to think about that. Just try to stay connected to the source because some
Mm,
of you are broken. You're broken because, for one, you haven't forgiven yourself. So that's the first thing you need to do. You need to forgive yourself. Or if it's somebody, you need to forgive that person.
mm-hmm.
All right, just like God has forgiven us. And
Amen.
so that way that brokenness can heal because I was not able to get to the point to where I was until I was able to like I got to let this go
Yes, sir.
because that is controlling me.
Yep.
That is controlling like the things that are happening in my life. So when it comes to like everything that Reggie is talking about and everything that I'm talking about, That's the first thing you have to do is look within, and you have to understand first that I need God. And then the next thing I need to do, I need to deal with this brokenness because Reggie talked about it. If something is broken in your house, you're trying to fix it. And some of you, like you haven't tried to fix it. You've been trying to
Mhm.
brush past and you've been trying to move on. Every time I speak, that's an opportunity for me to fix it.
Yes.
Because sometimes my audience thinks like I'm talking to you. I'm like, nah, I'm still talking to that little boy
Yes.
that went through the things that he went through in his life. And I'm trying to make sure that little boy knows, like, nah, even though you've been through all these things, even though your first or second speech wasn't the best speech, even though your last speech might have not been your best speech, you still are great. So no matter if you fail, that does not make you a failure. So
Hey,
and I know Reggie's I told him I'm gonna steal his
go ahead, say it,
acronym
bro. Drop it.
for fail, you know. But I'm gonna let him have it. I'm gonna just steal it when he ain't looking. But all right. But I tell people like just remembering everything, you take lessons, not losses. All
Yeah,
right. Just
what he's alluding to, what James is alluding to is I've talked to him offline about this. A fail, you can reappropriate a fail by this acronym. It's your first attempt in learning. And so as long as you learn from it, it's not a fail. That's what James is alluding to.
And that's why I say you take lessons, not losses. Because if you look at everything as like, okay, this was an opportunity for me to learn from the situation. So when I started looking at life that way, what am I supposed to be getting from this thing that is happening to me right now?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to be learning? Because if I just look at it as a loss, then we're all going to be losers. We're all going to be losers.
Right.
Because if you look at it, if you look at even in sports, right? You have all these teams are playing, right? But there's only one champion.
Right.
So everybody else is losers.
Mm-mm.
Because at the end of the day, like if you're in the playoffs, if your team loses, right, you could have had a good season. But if your team loses, because there's only one team that's going to say, like, we won the last game of the season. So
Right,
is
right.
everybody else losers?
Nah.
No. So
Giannis talked about this one time when they was like at the end of their season, he was like, "How do you feel that you didn't make it to the?" He's like, "Why are you even asking me that again? You know how much we gained. You know how much we learned this season, and you're just going to come back next season better prepared because of the losses, because of whatever we went through." And he, look at the Celtics, man. They lost a couple years ago, and then were able to come back and be the champions. The same with the Eagles. I mean, all teams go through this progression. You got to go through your paces and take the loss as a lesson learned and come back and do it all over again.
because sometimes it might be a lesson for life. Like for athletes, it might be literally a lesson for you to learn in life. That's why I love sports. It's because I feel like sports is just like a microcosm of like life. Like you can do like the
Hard things.
adversity, everything that you're going through on the court, and you have to make quick decisions. And sometimes it might not be the right decision, but you have to learn to deal with the consequences of what happened. But you made a decision. But the next time you get in that situation, maybe you make a different decision. But it's always learning until you, like, we should be always just trying to perfect ourselves to become the best version of ourselves that it can be.
Yes.
But I will always say that we cannot become the version of ourselves that we're ever designed to be unless we trust the person who designed us. So,
And we can I'm a hammer your point home with this one example that we can get off here. See, man, they can't put us in the same room at the Black Student Athlete because we're gonna go over our time. I already know. But but look, because we're gonna just be vibing off of one another. But that's what the spirit recognizes spirit. But I'm gonna hammer it home with this. Imagine the first person that ever looked at the hammer, the tool of a hammer once it was made. And they might have picked it up like, what is this and what is it for? What they got to do is they got to go back to the creator and say, what is the purpose of this thing you created? And he will tell them, and then they will be able to utilize it. And so I want to end right there. Like I said, we keep going. Man, you have been a you. This is why the Lord told me to have this interview with you because I knew it was going to be this type of dynamic impact, this type of dynamic exchange. And so this has been Manu Forte Ministries presenting Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I have been your host, Reggie Key. And this has been my genius host, my genius guest, rather, James Epps. James, appreciate you, man. Salute again to you.
peace.
Peace.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny by my dad, Reggie Legend, available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Ink Well Spoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.